Last April in 2024, the beta for the new Kingdom Hearts title, Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, revealed to us nearly 30 minutes of brand new Kingdom Hearts cutscenes and lore. On top of this, certain regions outside the US and Japan were able to play a ton of the game over a short period. This included about 4 chapters of Missing Link's story, multiplayer functions, and battle missions. While we've reacted to Missing Link's story, we have yet to take a deep analysis into new story details that might affect the greater Kingdom Hearts plot. The director had said after Kingdom Hearts 4 was revealed that the easiest way to get more new information and hints about Kingdom Hearts 4 would be first to play Missing Link. That was almost 3 years ago, and we're still waiting for Missing Link.
Oh, can you see?
Instead of talking about what we don't have, let's talk about these cutscenes that we do, which by the way is pretty substantial for our beta. We basically got the equivalent of a above average size Union Cross update with these cutscenes, and they're voice acted too, unlike other Kingdom Hearts mobile titles. Missing Link being a new Kingdom Hearts story doesn't feature a lot of characters that we are familiar with. Despite this, there's been many connections the fanbase has been speculating over since these cutscenes dropped. Even though I'm going to be going through all the chapters today, I'm mostly going to be talking about the most interesting moments. Meaning I'll be recapping all 4 chapters, but it is recommended you watch these cutscenes yourself to also form your own thoughts after the video, which I'll provide links to in the description to watch these cutscenes in full. Also, huge shout out to the channels who re-upload the cutscenes from the beta for us to watch. But before we get right into it, if you love Kingdom Hearts and are excited for the new titles, make sure to subscribe to the channel. So, right off the bat, in the tutorial of Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, there's already some interesting details to point out. The Station of Awakening for our player is Ephemer and Scold, which looks really beautiful. You can also hear this voice talking in the beginning, and it's kind of difficult to tell whether they are talking about our player or just making some report. One voice mentions the lifeboat, which we don't know if the lifeboat exists in this world yet, but if you ask me, it most likely does. There's 2 voices in this cutscene. One that has voice-acted dialogue, and one that just appears through text like in other Kingdom Hearts openings. I'll call this voice the guiding voice, since that's literally what they're doing. I believe the other voice with voice-acted dialogue is probably some science people at HQ we'll see later in these cutscenes, or perhaps Sigurd, since he seems like he'll be a prominent character in the story based on the key art to Missing Link. Now, for the guiding voice, I predict it's probably Ephemer, or someone who was close to our player in a previous life, which is something I'll bring up again later as well. Our starting Keyblade is a upgraded but rusty version of Starlight, the iconic Keyblade of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross and the Key Saga as a whole. The one voice actually speaking seems panicked and is talking about a signature they're picking up, right before our character opens the door to the Realm of Light and ends up a drifter on the beach. This is where Chapter 1 begins. In this chapter, we get introduced to a red-haired character named Remus, who is both searching for a distortion and scavenging for items on the beach, which is where they find our rusty Starlight Keyblade before finding us stranded on the shore. And then they wake us up pretty aggressively.
Nah. Nani? Keyblade なんて珍しくないだろ?
Man, Kingdom Hearts has changed a lot over the years. Our character doesn't have any memories and is called a drifter, a term the game describes as those without memories who wash ashore on Skylight Kylum once in a blue moon. They are presumed to have arrived from another world by way of distortions, but their existence is a mystery. This is either a major lore detail of Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, or just a canonical way of the game describing other player characters in a gameplay sense, since Missing Link is supposed to be a multiplayer game. If this does apply to non-player characters, then that means that just random people are popping up in Missing Link's timeline, which might also have to do with Missing Link being known as the Blank Era, something we don't really get much elaboration on that I'm sure we'll figure out why it's called that towards the end of Missing Link's story. Also, based on Remus's reaction, it doesn't seem like drifters are normally Keyblade wielders, which may add a sort of uniqueness to our situation. The term drifter as a whole is fascinating, and I'm anticipating it being brought up more throughout the game's story upon release. Are characters like Brain considered a drifter even though they have their memories? By technicality, someone like Kairi on the Destiny Islands would widely be considered a drifter to that world, since she arrived there with no memories as a kid. Same with Subject X and a lot of Kingdom Hearts characters that may not be from their own time. What they describe a drifter as is something that happened in the Kingdom Hearts universe more than once. Anyways, before a big conversation can commence between Remus and our player character, a dark side pops out of one of these distortions. After the fight, Remus wants to take our player to see the operations master, which is essentially a Keyblade master of a society. Societies sort of acting like Keyblade factions in Kingdom Hearts Missing Link. As they head on their way towards the center of Scarlet Kylum, we meet even more new characters, a operator and inspector, who seem to help keep the city safe from distortions and analyze any anomalies in Scarlet Kylum, and they also send Keyblade wielders on missions, it seems. They discuss small-scale distortions happening around the city and speculate if some sort of anomaly is causing them before continuing right back to a cutscene with our player and Remus. I kind of wonder if the operator and inspector or people who work in these roles are also Keyblade wielders, or maybe they're not and just know how to analyze like these sort of events. Anyhow, this wraps up chapter 1, and this is where we begin Chapter 2. We start off Chapter 2 in a very familiar place if you're caught up with Kingdom Hearts Union Cross and watch the secret ending, because this location in what seems to be the town center is where Union Leader Brain would arrive after the events of Union Cross. Our player looks at the statue of former Union Leader and founder of Scarlet Kylum, Ephemer, holding that Master's Defender that Brain gave him right during the climax of Union Cross. Our player has a sort of reaction to seeing the statue. They show this with a flash on screen and the player asking, "Who is that?" And it's almost like they recognize the name. Remus asks if they recognize that name, Ephemer, and the player says, "I'm not sure." Now, this is where I'm going to get into some theorizing. I heavily believe this player character is just a reincarnation of our original player character from Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. And yes, this would also mean that our player character in Missing Link is probably the same character but just a young version of the old man we see in Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. I think it would be really cool if Missing Link ended like just perfectly leading into Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. I think that would be so sick. While Remus is explaining who Ephemer was to this city, the player slowly approaches him and wipes something off his clothes. Remus just claims it's probably rust from the Keyblade, and he got dirty while fighting Heartless. Now, without the dialogue, the game does not show any rust or anything on his clothes. We'll call this a mobile game budget moment. This scene is extremely suspicious and definitely wants to imply there's a little bit more to what Remus was doing than what he told us. And this suspicious moment is going to be paired with another interaction we'll see in a bit. So just keep this scene in mind. Anyways, some Heartless spawn, they fight them, and then we transition to another cutscene with the operator and inspector, where they talk about more Heartless spawning in the city and how there's no one available to deal with them, except for a group called the Baruch Society.
バロック結社か。
Which almost sounds like broke, as in what I am right now, so check out the Patreon. But Remus then introduces us to the Baruch Society, where you can see the place isn't that polished. The sign is crooked, so I'd say the name is possibly accurate, which I think brings up another discussion about how Keyblade wielders are probably not just Keyblade wielders for fun or any sort of moral obligation, but maybe also as a day job? Imagine being a Keyblade wielder to pay your rent. Anyways, we have some officers walk up to Remus, and the player asking where they were earlier because they heard about an assault on the shore, claiming they matched the eyewitness description and asked them to come back to headquarters. Remus explains what he was doing out there, checking for distortions, and the cops elaborate that there were traces of a rusty keyblade left on the victim. So, obviously, Remus seems perfectly fine, as in it doesn't seem like they've been attacked. However, our player was completely comatose on the beach, but I don't think our player attacked anyone or was attacked either. So this means that either they are being mislabeled or that Remus wasn't on the beach looking for distortions or scavenging for stuff. Now, I have a crazy theory that doesn't have much weight to it yet because we don't have that much evidence supporting it and not that many cutscenes. It's just weird and suspicious. But one thing for sure is that Remus is sus. From being on the beach at the perfect moment to find us, to weird looks, the rusty keyblade fragments on their clothes, and them acting very weird about it, to now this about an assault on the beach, I'm extremely suspicious of this guy. Now, I'm gonna save the theory for when Missing Link actually comes out and we get more story, but all I'm gonna say is Luciu was in the very first Missing Link trailer, and he's walking around somewhere, if you see where I'm getting at. During this, we meet another new Kingdom Hearts character named Nept who walks out of the building. And hear this, they come out of the building asking the cops if they have a arrest warrant. What game am I playing? Or not playing in this case. Missing Link is about to be crazy. The cops ask who is this guy, and Nept introduces themselves as the operations master of the Baruch Society, which as a slight refresher is sort of kinda equivalent to a Keyblade master or leader of a group. They also serve on the Society Legal Investigations Committee, whatever that means. Nept slowly walks behind the officers as he's talking while they look towards Remus's direction. While Nept is behind them, they can see that there's something lodged behind their heads, and Nept quickly takes them out. After these items are taken out quickly, the officers suddenly don't realize why they are here in the first place, obviously insinuating that they were being possessed by something this entire time. These items seem to be black feathers, and as Nept squishes them in his hands after the officers leave, the camera pans out to these two characters sitting on a rooftop with silver hair. We don't get a good look at either of these characters' faces, but they aren't surprised that Nept found out about the feathers. And one of the characters says they should hang back for now, since they know where to find them. And this is where we end Chapter 2. So there isn't too much I have to say about these characters with silver hair, but Missing Link is a story that is partially going to be about bloodlines, which we'll mention in a little bit. So maybe these silver hair characters are related to some other silver hair characters we see later in the series. So Nept is very interesting. A lot of people seem to think because of the blue hair that Nept must be related to Aqua, and hence people also think Remus is related to Axel in some way because of the red hair. This isn't just because of some simple association, but shortly after Kingdom Hearts Missing Link was announced, director Tetsuo Nomura said that bloodlines would be a plot point of Missing Link. So fans are just trying to get a head start on where these bloodlines may lead to later in the Kingdom Hearts timeline. Anyhow, let's move on to Chapter 3. This chapter starts with us inside the Baruch Society's building. Remus warns us to watch our step because the place is old. Though before this interaction, we get a short glimpse at another new character who has silver hair as well. She is seemingly investigating something on the wall, and there's a lot of recognizable images and symbols on these pictures. Among images of horses and chariots, we see the Master Defender that was owned by Ephemer and Brain, multiple triangles that seem to be related to Scarlet Kylum in some way, and a picture of a mysterious character in a hat, who I'm guessing is Sigurd, who we haven't seen yet in this game. They don't discuss this very much in these sets of cutscenes in the beta, but it seems like the Baruch Society is investigating something happening in Scarlet Kylum, and when we pan out as well, you can see an even bigger image of Sigurd along with another mysterious picture of someone I have no clue about. It's far away, but even from afar, I can tell this is not someone I think we've seen in Kingdom Hearts before. I'm sure the game will touch upon this way later when it finally releases. Anyways, as everyone walks in, Nept sits on the couch as this new girl walks behind, asking if this new person, us, is a visitor. This new girl is named Freya, another new Kingdom Hearts character, and as Nept describes, she handles the administrative work and is one of the Baruch Society's finest members. They talk about how Remus brought us in, and Remus then turns to us and asks if we really lost our memories, and our character responds, they don't remember. They recap the events of their meeting, and we end up showing Nept the rusty Keyblade. Remus explains how they don't think we're the attacker the officers were talking about. And as Remus goes on and on about the situation, Nept interrupts him and says we haven't shaken yet. And with this handshake, Nept officially welcomes us into the Baruch Society. So, my first impressions of Nept is he's really a fun and outgoing character who also is very powerful and has a mysterious side. Freya seems like she's going to be a very reliable character and probably one we're going to see very frequently. She also seems like kind of a simp for Nept a little bit. And Remus, on the other hand, kind of gives me a lot of Axel vibes. I'm not saying that just because of the bloodline association thing, but genuinely they have this sort of looser vibe around them. But Nept and Remus talk outside after our character falls asleep, and Nept tells Remus to teach our player character everything they know tomorrow, which Remus doesn't think they're cut out for that sort of thing. Remus walks off and Freya approaches Nept, saying to not go to sleep until the paperwork is finished. And this is where Chapter 3 ends. A pure cutscene chapter. So, we've been introduced to the main cast, I think. Nept, the operations master, Freya, who I'll call the analyst, and Remus, who does something. These three and their names are fascinating though, as from my very 100% accurate Google searches, similar to a lot of Kingdom Hearts characters, these names have potentially deeper meanings that may or may not be related to the story. Nept is simply just short for Neptune, as in King Neptune. Remus's name, however, is twin in Roman, while Freya having a name from Norse mythology, which is similar to a lot of Dark Road characters, being the Norse goddess of love and beauty. I'm not going to look too deep into these names, but I do find it fascinating that Remus means twin, especially paired with the Lushu comment I made during Chapter 2, so I'll just leave that out there. Now, Chapter 4 is somewhat the longest chapter, but only because there's a lot of gameplay in this chapter, and it essentially seems to serve as the game's more official tutorial and introduction to its mission grind. This is where we learn about the astral dimension, which after waking up and seeing Scala during the day, Freya is ready to tell our player about. The astral dimension is a world where no one lives and they know very little about it, but it seems like it's the main place we'll be playing the game and fighting Heartless. Those distortions are what connect the astral dimension to this world. Freya also says that the Heartless only show up through these things, through these distortions, and that they theorize they come here to steal their hearts because there isn't any to steal where they are from. We get a lot of gameplay explaining stuff, and then we go to the reception desk to start our mission, where we look for Remus, who is supposed to be here, but is not. Now, maybe Remus didn't wake up in the morning, but I feel like Remus is probably doing something else, something suspicious. But maybe we'll see more when the game comes out. So since Remus isn't here, Freya decides to send us in there alone, being a new Keyblade wielder. Against our will. Some great employee safety going on here. At least they give us some new clothes and a cool Keyblade though. Freya and the boss insisted that we change because we stand out a lot, especially after the earlier events in the chapters. So to go to the astral dimension, we walk in this building and jump through this big portal in the center, and we enter a place that looks very similar to Scarlet Kylum, but technically isn't. As we walk through this dimension, Freya yaps some exposition into our ears. She says the astral dimension is a place connecting existence and non-existence, which almost sounds like the run between in other Kingdom Hearts games, but there's no nobodies here. And this is basically where all the story for Missing Link ends. For the beta. After this, people just got to play the game and do whatever they wanted. So, as usual with Kingdom Hearts, these Missing Link cutscenes leave a lot of questions. I think that's a big reason a lot of people haven't been talking about these cutscenes super in depth, because there's a lot of new characters here, and a lot of people that we don't really have a good feel for yet, so it's hard to speculate and make things like about them. But there's still a lot of interesting topics covered in Missing Link's beta, and I have a feeling this is going to be a very political Kingdom Hearts story, probably diving deep into the morals and ethics of Keyblade wielders, while also kind of comparing them to what should be the society's like code and functions about how they go about things. I imagine there's going to be a lot of division in this game's story between bloodlines, between societies, between certain factions, and probably be like a big escalation from what we probably saw a little bit during Union Cross and its Keyblade War. Maybe this story ends in a similar sort of Keyblade War, which causes it to be the blank era. It's hard to say though. I'm curious as to how this world is structured, how societies meld into it, and this will be our first real 3D look at what older Keyblade society is like from the perspective of a common Keyblade wielder. Union Cross and Dark Road both had stellar stories and intriguing dialogue, but a big plus from Kingdom Hearts Missing Link is having the voice-acted cutscenes that'll make these moments more engaging and more memorable, and for the casual Kingdom Hearts fan to get into a lot easier. Even if the casual Kingdom Hearts fan doesn't play this game or touch it at all, they could probably watch it online in a much better way. I'm curious as to how much story they'll drop when Missing Link does release, seeing that it's been almost 3 years since it was announced along with Kingdom Hearts 4, but also because they gave us quite a bit of cutscenes just for our beta. Even though these were technically 4 different chapters that served as an introduction to the game, I wonder if when the game actually does release, can we expect chapter updates to be more meaty or just a cutscene or two? Because if you look at these chapter by chapter, each chapter has around 1 or 2 cutscenes. I might regret saying this, but I am fine if they milk this game a tiny bit, just because it seems like the future of Kingdom Hearts is going to have mainline titles titles taking a little longer to release, though at the same time, I do want things released in a satisfying way that is still moving the plot forward and not keeping it stagnant. They clearly have very big plans for this game, and this will likely be our continuous mobile game until the Lost Master saga is finished. I personally can't wait to see more of these cutscenes and see more of these characters. I can't wait to see characters like Lucio and Sigurd pop up especially, and as always, I just hope we see more Kingdom Hearts this year in general. People are very optimistic about Missing Link coming out in spring, maybe summer, so maybe we'll play this game a lot sooner than we think. Tell me down below in the comments some of your theories and thoughts on these cutscenes, and let me know also if it was your first time experiencing some of them. But until next time, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to be nice, be safe, and take care everyone.